favorite things about YouTube is at the snap of a finger, I can teleport to any casino in the world. Let's hop into a session. There's only a 2-5 game at the Red Rock. I don't have a ton of time. I put out an Instagram post though, trying to get a 5-10 game going. So if you guys, ever want to see what the hell's going on a more day-to-day basis, follow me on Instagram. It's close to broke, pretty soon.
Alrighty folks, welcome back to another episode. Today's episode is going to be at the Red Rock, and we're going to be playing 2-5 to get things going, 2-5-10 for the most part, and then we'll be switching over to the 5-10 game. But very first hand of the session, the very first hand I've been dealt, we find ourselves in the big blind. Early position limps to $5, next to act isolates to $25. Small blind calls, and I'm in the big blind with queen 3 of diamonds. I'm going to go ahead and make the call here. The limper calls as well, and we're going off to a flop that comes 8 deuce deuce with 2 diamonds and a spade. Not a bad flop for our specific holding. We're going to go and check it over to the initial raiser. He makes it $50, and surprisingly, every single gosh darn person in this hand makes a call. And we find ourselves going off to a turn card that comes a 7 of clubs. So this is not really helping us out at all. But the good thing is the entire action checks through. Looking to pick up some kind of equity heading off to this river card that comes a queen of hearts. Got there in an unexpected fashion, and when the action checks over to me, I feel like a blocker bet is in order. What does this accomplish? I don't have to face a bigger bet for the most part, and if I get raised, I can pretty comfortably throw my hand away into the muck. I make it $30 as a blocker bet, and you would not believe it. Just like the flop, every single player makes the call. We flip over our hand, and surprisingly enough, it is good. So don't really know what happened there, but we'll definitely take the max value. And that's only good, right? To be quite honest, at this point, I'm pretty much just finding a way to make the game interesting. It's not very good, and I'm the only one trying to bring the action. As you guys know, I'm not going to sit around for 8 hours waiting for the premiums. I like to make my own luck and push the boundaries, I guess. I look down at 4-3 of spades. After the cutoff limps, I'm in position. I decide to isolate from the button to $50. The small blind calls, a little weird. And then the limper calls. We're going off to a flop. 3 ways it comes 5 deuce 8 with 1 spade, but it's a rainbow board texture. Great flop for our hand. Not that great for our range, but again, who gives a crap about that? We're playing 2-5. The action checks over to me. I'm going to go ahead and c-bet here to $60. Looking to go a little bit above 30%. Somewhere about 40, 50% of the pot seems about reasonable. The small blind makes a call. The limper folds, and we're going off to a turn card that comes a king of hearts. With the action checked over to me, I feel like it only makes sense to me that we crank up the aggression, make this a little dangerous. So I decide to bet $180. Looking to go pretty massive here. Staying within my boundary feels like is a decent idea. So that is what we do. And the small blind thinks about it for a bit before eventually relinquishing his hand. We go ahead and show the table as we are here to mix it up and trying to liven up the action. I don't recommend this always, but I do have to remember that for the most part, when I show down these really bad hands, I can't be bluffing all that much, and that's okay. We've done enough bluffing to this point. Hopefully we can get some, actual showdown value. Moving right along, in this very next hand, we look down at another premium after the under the gun makes it $10. I find myself in middle position. I look down at ace queen offsuit. Gonna go and 3-bet here to 30 bones. The gentleman directly to my left decides 4-betting is a reasonable idea. He makes it $125 to go. With the action folded over to me, it feels like 5-betting would be a punt, and it feels like folding here would be a little nitty. So I end up making the call, expecting to be against, aces, kings, queens, jacks, tens, ace, king, ace, jack. Not great, but we do have to defend at some frequency. Anyways, we're going off to a flop that comes jack 8 forward, 2 clubs and a diamond. I check the action over to my opponent. He bets 150. I think about it for a brief moment, and you guys might be saying, hey, just throw this away. But, this board is actually not that bad for my 3-bet calling range. I'm going to have the jacks here. I'm definitely going to have, the flush draws here, and I do block that, and I do have the backdoor flush draw as well as the backdoor nut straight draw. Either way, I do end up going against my initial read, which was to float, but it seems like we made a pretty confident, pretty reasonable fold. It's really hard, even on that board texture, to be ahead now. Even ace-jack is ahead, king-jack, random bluffs like that, and then obviously ace-king, ace-queen is the only hand we're chopping with, and then tens and queens, kings, all those hands are better anyway. So long-winded, I know, but I got to give you guys my honest thought process at the table when I was thinking. By this point, the game is pretty much snoozed me to a lull. Either way, you guys are going to be excited as this next hand, we are on the button and we look down at 7 deuce offsuit. When you're playing, in a game that's this boring, even if I'm the action and that's not great, it's minus EV, I guess the term is, but who cares? I'm ready to mix it up. I've got a vlog to make, and let's see if we can't outmaneuver some people going to the flop. Anyways, we decide to raise to $35 from the button as there is a straddle on. Both the big blind and the straddler make the call, and we're going 3 ways with 7 high to a flop that comes queen, 10, 7 with 2 diamonds and a club. The action checked over to me. I decided to bet $40. Only the small blind calls, and we're going off to a turn card that comes a king of hearts. Again, with this run out is pretty much specifically better for my holding than my opponent. It's hard to see him have jack 9 here. Don't really peg this opponent to have that kind of hand in his range, but who knows? I don't know these people. I'm just profiling at this point. Either way, with the action checked over to me, again, I'm going to have all the nutted hands, kings, queens, tens, ace-jack suited. All those hands hit my range, so I decided to bet here, continue the story for $85. My opponent makes the call a little reluctantly. We're going off to a river card. After he checks in the dark, that comes a deuce of diamonds. We now have ourselves 2 pair, the bottom 2 pair variety, but that does bring in a flush. The one thing I thought, and this is metagame, and I actually really want to know what you guys think, when people check blind on the river, it's usually a sign of weakness, and moreover, I wouldn't imagine somebody that's chasing a flush draw is going to check blind on the river. If they improve, I would imagine they'd want to bet or at least think about betting. So that's kind of the read I'm going with right now. At this point, I'm just praying that my opponent has some kind of random second pair holding, like a queen, jack-ish, king, jack maybe makes sense. So after a little bit of thinking it over, I decide to jam for $200, his last remaining dollars, and he pretty quickly makes a fold. We've got to show the 7 high or the 7 deuce that ended up being 2 pair to the table. That gets a little bit of excitement going, and that'll bring us to a close for the 2-5 portion of this video. And let's hop over to the 5-10 as we have a couple more interesting hands to go over that I think you guys are going to really like. Alrighty, just getting myself situated here very early on into the 5-10 game. We're playing 5 or 6-handed. It's a short game, but we're happy to get in the mix. We're in the gun, and we look down at ace-king offsuit. I decided to make it $30. The small blind 3 bets here to $110. Feels like a competent player. After a little bit of thinking, I actually decide with just a flat here. Mixing in flats with hands this strong is pretty cool, I think. Usually I play aggressive here, and a 4-bet's pretty mandatory for sure, like 90% of the time. But in these times where I'm in position, I feel like I don't really mind it. I'm going to go ahead and play my hand for its merits. We're going off to a flop that comes ace 10-3 with 2 spades and a diamond. The opponent decides to c-bet pretty small here for $75. With the downsized bet, I think I'm either, way ahead or I guess behind, but more than likely this is just a bet that's like a range bet. I don't think raising at this juncture makes too much sense, so I end up making the call. We're going off to a turn card that comes a 6 of spades. Not great, as that does introduce that flush. It's now available. And with the opponent betting $125, I actually am put in an interesting situation. I feel like if I raise here, I can still get called by hands that are like ace-queen with the queen of spades, ace-jack with the jack of spades. I can still be getting called by inferior holdings. Even his hands that I'm assuming have some equity or that have draws, like if he has 7-8 or something like that, we're trying to get the max value and really charge what I'm supposing might be a pair plus a flush draw. Besides specifically maybe like king, queen of spades, queen, jack of spades, there's honestly not a ton of spade flush available for my opponent to have that'll be 3-betting from the small blind. Like I said, about 2 or 3 combos that make sense in my head, so I end up raising to $350 for pure value. This is not a bluff. I'm doing this because I think I can get called by inferior holdings that have equity that we need to charge against. After a pretty long tank, my opponent decides I'm making the call. Not too worried. We're going to a river card hoping to fade some outs. And the river card comes a pretty crappy card, as it comes the 8 of spades. Brings some straight draws, definitely brings some even more flushes in. And when the action checked over to me, I have a pretty easy snap check back. Unbelievably so, my opponent shows the queen jack of spades. So one of the combinations of spades that makes sense. Props to him. I don't know, I probably lose more. If I raise the flop, I'm going to lose more. If I 4-bet pre, he might call anyways. But either way, it just seems like things weren't turning in our favor for this specific holding, this specific hand. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys play that, any different? I'm sure a lot of you guys just 4-bet pre-flop. Maybe some of you guys don't raise a turn, but I kind of like what I was going for. I think just as often as he has a queen jack with the, queen jack of spades, he's going to have a hand that maybe consists of ace queen with the queen of spades, as I mentioned. So it is what it is. We're going to go ahead and have to pretty much die on our sword. So by this point, things, like I said, haven't been going in our favor in this 5-10 game. The game's pretty tough. The lineup's not easy. So when that's the case, we've got to bring in our A game. In this next hand, the hijack makes it $30. He's a friend of the vlog. So shout out to this gentleman. We're here in the small blind, and we look down at 9-7 of diamonds. Suited connector seems fine with me. I'm going to go ahead and make the call. We're going off to a flop that comes 10-9-4 rainbow. With the action checked over to my opponent, given his opening, area, he is in the hijack. We're 6-handed, so kind of technically it's under the gun +1 as well. I expect him to not really be hitting this board all that often. Sure, queen jack and jack 10 and maybe ace 9 makes sense, but for the most part, I think he has a pretty clear check. He ends up checking it through, and we're going off to a turn card that comes the king of hearts. Not a great card, as it's going to help out his ace kings, his king queens, and all those hands I feel like would be comfortably checking back the flop with some showdown value. After I check it over to him, he bets $35. Can't be folding at this juncture, so I end up making the call, and we're going off to a river card that comes a beautiful 7. That's exactly what we were looking for. Came from the outer space realm or something. And now the question becomes, do I check and let him bluff, or do I bet? The problem is there's not a whole lot of bluffs that I think he's going to have here. It feels like when he bets the turn, for the most part, he's going to have some showdown value. I don't think a hand like ace jack or ace queen's betting that turn. I think they're pretty comfortable taking that showdown value. So I think it's a good idea to polarize here. If he has a hand like ace 10, if he has a hand like jack 10 that just played it a little weird, he's going to have to, make a tough call. If he has a hand like pocket jacks or pocket queens, again, I'm just going to put him in a blender. I'm going to put him in the old mixing pan or whatever the hell you want to call it. Anyways, I decide to bomb this river. $150 to go. Again, my goal is to target specifically a hand like king jack, ace king, and some random, 10s that he have in his range. After a pretty much insta snap call, we show our hand, and we're pretty confident that we're good. And in fact, we are. Our opponent would later tell us that he had ace king. So, like I said, we got lucky on the river, but we found a way to get max value. Pretty happy with the way we played that river. I'm happy we, deduced that our opponent, for the most part, is going to have value, and we don't want to allow him to check it back if he did have a hand like jacks or queens. It's good to also put those hands, which will definitely be in his range, in a blender in a tough spot. For the times that we are bluffing, rounding out today's session, we have an awesome hand, and it's going to be the Chat Pro hand of the day. So get your Chat Pro fingers ready, as I'm very interested to see and to hear what you guys think about this hand and how you guys would have played it. We're under the gun and we're still playing 6-handed. I make it $30 to go. Folds all the way to the big blind, who 3-bets to 130. In position, slightly over 4x. We're playing like 2,500 effective. We're playing massively, 250 big blinds deep. This is never a fold, so I'm going to go ahead and make the call as I am in position with the suited connector. We're going off to a flop that comes 10-6-4 rainbow. Flop and top pair feels amazing, and even more so when the opponent bets $130. Sure, he can have all the aces, kings, queens, jacks, even 10s, sometimes. But I'm not really worried about that. I mean, obviously, he can have them. Let's not discount that. But we called and hit a pair. We're not folding. So I make the call. We're going off to a turn card that comes a 7 of clubs. At this point, the opponent checks it over to me. So at this point, I'm putting him pretty clearly on hands that include some showdown value, whether that's like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, maybe like 7-8 suited or 9-7 suited, random holdings like that, as well as, obviously ace highs like ace king, ace queen, random king highs. So when the action's checked over to me, I'm actually betting here for equity denial as well as getting value. I think those inferior hands can still call me, and I sure, might be value owning myself for the times he does have jacks plus, but in this exact instance, I feel like knitting it up is not the play. We're down. We're trying to get back to even, so I bet $280 for value. My opponent thinks it over for a moment before deciding to make the call. The river card comes unbelievably bad here as it comes the ace of diamonds. Before I let you guys know what happens next, maybe 5 seconds I'm going to give you guys. Let me know what street you would have played differently and what you're putting the opponent on at this moment. All right, so after my opponent sees the ace of diamonds, he doesn't bet. That's kind of interesting, as again, this is probably better for his range, and I'd expect him to at least attempt a bluff at this hand sometimes if he has some kind of random misdraw. But with the action checked over to me, I'm pretty comfortable just checking this back. Maybe you guys are willing to go for thin value, but in reality, I'm just not targeting that many hands. So I check it back, not really happy about that river card. My opponent flips over 7-8 of hearts, so we end up winning here with the second pair as we got max value, and it feels great. A really nice 3-bet for my opponent there. He's obviously going to be balanced. It's good to have suited connectors in your 3-bet range. It sucks when you're out of position, and it sucks when you're playing against somebody like me that's willing to get in the mix. But we're going to end this session off on a high note. We played for literally another hour and a half after this point, and I did not play a single hand that was worthy of the vlog. Maybe a couple 3-bets, maybe a couple of somebody 3-bets me, I call and I fold. So not a whole lot went on after that. Either way, I can't thank you guys enough for your support. You guys are very important to the Close to Broke familia. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Stay happy, healthy, and more importantly, let's get over to me in the outro to see how the heck we feel after kind of a dull session, if I'm being frank.
And just like that, we are out of today's session. Shout out to Aiden, our brother here, our boy. He came out from Vegas to enjoy the weekend, the festivities, but unfortunately, man, we were in a pretty boring 5-10 game there to end the session. The 2-5 game was pretty good. We were into the 2-5 game for 1K out for 860, so we lost 140 in that. And then in the 5-10 game, we were in for 2860, and we were out for 2740, so lost 120 there. Otherwise, yeah, pretty boring, not a lot of action. It was fun to battle. We didn't really run all that great on any of the sessions, so we'll take it.
Those other donkeys got so fucking lucky every hand. They just luck boxed the entire session. Huron comes out swinging hard for the fences, and they just luck box. It is what it is. On to the next.
On to the next
time.
If you guys haven't already, make sure to click the link at the top of the description if you guys ever want to play with me. Make sure to check out the merch as it's coming out. Finally got that link situated. Have a wonderful day, you guys. Stay happy, healthy, and more importantly, run good to the tables, y'all. Deuces.